So, welcome to Let's Go Live. I'm Gigi Meyer, and I have with me contemporary new adult romance author Loren Sorenson. Welcome, Loren.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so we have to tell everybody though that we actually know each other. We've been on we've been on a podcast interview before.
Yes.
Do you want to tell them what that was about?
Yeah, so one of the it's a long-winded story about how it got started, but a podcast oh my gosh, what's the name? Someone who started a podcast. And we're friendly, and
I lost my IG, but I think it was Lattes. Love and Lattes?
Love and Lattes, yes, Love and Lattes. Shout out to Love and Lattes. Elizabeth and I became acquainted because I'm starting an audiobook, and she auditioned for it. And we're talking about ways that we can support new authors. And she was interested in interviewing, and I was like, hey, can we get the whole gang on this interview? And so we coordinated it together, and it was a great fun. Being able to see everyone and talk to each other, it was the first time we were able to do that. So yeah, it was great.
And what's cool about it, there was 5 authors in our anthology. The anthology is called As Fate Would Have It. What is my deal? I'm blanking out tonight. And so there was 5 of us authors on there, and one of them is in the UK. So that podcast allowed us to be all together. And I think she's put the podcast out on her, I think, YouTube or her Spotify.
Yeah.
So if you go out and pay her some love there, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah. It's I definitely know it's on YouTube, and I know she has podcasts everywhere. So yeah, go check out Love and Lattes podcast. We'd love to hear what everyone thinks.
And so your story, The Reluctant Star, was its own star of the anthology.
Oh, thank you.
So what was the inspiration behind writing that story? Because would you call it a contemporary, or would you call it a new adult?
Contemporary. Well, Nora's 25, so she's right on that cusp. And Marlon's 30, so he's not quite new adult, but maybe. It's right on, it can go either way. But the inspiration started with when I was researching. I was looking for happy endings in Greek mythology, because that's rare to even have a happy ending, because they're all tragedies.
I didn't know there even is a happy ending, not one.
Yeah, so I started researching it, and Eros and Psyche is one of the few that really came up. And the reason that it caught my attention was because Eros, who is the god of love and sexual desire, is a married god, and he's been married and faithful to Psyche his entire existence since the myth came to being. So I thought that was really interesting, and when I was reading it, I was like, man, this is reading like a Hollywood drama, and Aphrodite is a real housewife in this whole thing. And so the whole precedence for a modern retelling in Hollywood with a reality TV series got me going with Aphrodite.
Okay, but I love it. Such a good story, but it's so nichey, right? The riches are in the niches, they say.
Yeah. So would you say that again one more time?
The riches are in the niches, so it is very niche down, but that's what I love about it.
Yeah. It's different from anything I've ever done. And when I got into the whole creative process in high school, I got really excited because I had a project where we did multimedia platforms for sharing creativity. So we were asked to do different things. So playwright, or creating a script for plays, short stories, poetry, artwork. We had to have some music in it. And I got really into it. And so that creative bug flowed with this project, because I was like, they're in Hollywood, like tabloids are everywhere. We all like text, everyone texts, and I was like, part of the original myth is, how do Eros and Psyche speak, and they fall in love without seeing each other. So how do they fall in love without seeing each other? And I wasn't planning on putting that in there at all, until I was like, oh yeah, they can just text, duh. So, I love the idea of having multiple ways of telling their story. And with the kind of character that Eros is inspiring, someone who falls fast and hard in love, I thought it would be interesting to keep him accountable with someone who knows him, who can, validate that this isn't just something new or something extraordinary. It's, a legitimate process of Marlon falling in love. And that's how Anthony got a point of view in there. And it's kind of I didn't mean for it to become a trend, but I like having an outsider, not necessarily influence, but just give some perspective to the main romance, because they're going to see something that that helps people understand why these people, why their love story is interesting. And so Anthony is inspired by Antares, who in some variations of Greek mythology is Eros's brother, and his opposite, in that he is the god of mutual love and reciprocation. So there's a lot of thought that went into this process for me. I did everything intentionally.
Oh no, y'all, you should see her artwork that she created for it. I mean, she went way above and beyond. So the question is, though, you've kind of found your own niche. Are you going to turn it into a series? You have this one story already. You love mythology. You love the modern retelling. I feel like in Hollywood, oh my gosh, that could be so many stories, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't thought about making it a series, but I am definitely interested. I've always loved mythology. I've always loved folklore. Retelling stories is such a big thing in literature that, I don't see any reason why, that could become a whole new thing. So I'm definitely interested in that.
That could be for like 2025. I don't know if you have that plotted out yet or planned for 2025 yet.
The Reluctant Star is a full novel. I want to get that focused, try to get that published as a full novel in the spring. That's the goal.
Have you finished
So,
writing it?
no, not at all. Not at all. And that might be a lofty goal. So, but 2025, at least get a full length novel of The Reluctant Star there.
Okay,
Or,
so we'll back this up on the anthology talk to your actual platform. I see a little somebody peeking in
it's
the
my
corner.
son. He loves to sneak in whenever there's a camera. So he's my little Leo. He loves to be wherever the videos are.
Well, he's a handsome young
Thank
man.
you. Yes, he's wonderful.
He likes to be on there too. Okay, so speaking of, though, your current works, I know you have a Christmas book that you've been promoting.
Yep, it's called The Trouble with Christmas. That was actually my first published piece that I did. It'll be a year, November 27th, when I published it last year. And I'm republishing it because I am an audiophile. I live and breathe audiobooks, and I've had other people, ARC readers, who said, I think this would be a great audiobook. And TJ from the Anthology and I were talking, and he was like, you should, are you going to do something for the Reluctant Star? And I was like, probably not until the novel. And then I just sort of got to thinking about it, and I was like, well, I could do this with The Trouble with Christmas because it's already there.
Yeah.
And so I just pursued it. And then, so now I'm like, go big and go home, right? Because I'm doing a whole read through for the audio manuscript. And then I'm also doing a second epilogue, which is sort of like an immediate follow-up with what happens at the end of the story. So that's going to all go into the second edition. And then with the audiobook is coming a Kickstarter to fund it, and to get people excited about it. So yeah, it's becoming this whole thing. It's like taking over my whole life.
Okay, I have a million questions about taking over your whole life. when she mentioned TJ, that's TJ Ryan, and he's our British friend across the pond. And so he has some spicy romance.
Yes.
Y'all look him up here. Okay, so on that book, how do you find talent? Where do you go for that? Are you interviewing? Is it a dual POV? So you have to find dual talent or multiple POVs? So walk us through that process, because then I have even more questions about it.
Yeah, it starts with ACX. So ACX is the platform that Amazon uses for audiobooks. You can sign up as a narrator, and you can sign up as an author. And I did that a year before I started this process, just thinking, oh, I should, keep my options open. And then when I decided to pursue it, I had to create a script, which I learned the hard way. It needs to be equivalent to about 5 minutes for a narrator to read as an audition. So that's the hardest thing ever, picking out what are you going to share with the actors that are going to potentially read your book. What vulnerable are there moments that you want to highlight? So I had to go through that. And
okay, can I stop you there?
Yeah.
Do you pick a spicy scene? Do you pick a romantic scene? I mean, how do you know what to choose? Because that would be tough.
Yeah.
We always are used to like marketing our books, so you get in your marketing for readers, but this is different.
Yeah. So I did 2 chapters with the intention of having one for a male narrator and one for a female narrator. And I did more lighthearted or more interesting moments. So for Caleb, so the basic premise of the story is that Rayanne has to get her Christmas tree up to her apartment, and the only person that can help her is her best friend's younger brother, who has had a massive crush on her like his whole life. And so there's residual feelings between them that are not addressed, and this kind of pushes them over the edge into exploring something different. And so in chapter 3 for Caleb, that choice that I made was showing their relationship by fighting over the tree that she's picked, because it's too tall. It's not going to fit in her apartment. And Caleb knows this, and he's trying to tell her this, but Rayanne is completely like locked on this vision for what she has. And so there's a line that I wrote where it says, the battle commences between logic and nostalgia, or something like that. And so I wanted to do something fun where it was, showing them in their old relationship. And then for Rayanne, I picked the moment where she starts to notice him as a man and someone that's not the teenage awkward boy that like has been gawking at her, and how she's reacting to those feelings. So that's what I did the first time. And then I would say, do a callback, and then with the callback, do something more high stakes. So for that moment for me, I chose a fight, because in the fight, Caleb reveals a lot of important emotional baggage that he's held on to, and Rayanne has to either embrace or not, or reject it. And so there's a lot of conflict. And so I had both the male narrators and female narrators read it, because that was important to me to understand how they interpreted the anger and the frustration and all the ugly feelings that come with, years and years of knowing each other and shifting a relationship. So, but I would say if you have a spicy book, make that a second callback. Make sure that the chemistry is there. And this is going to be a dual narrative. So that means Willa, who will be Rayanne, will read the chapter all the way through. And Christian Leatherman will do all of Caleb's chapters. And duet is the biggest difference. That's when they read all of the dialogue. So like if it was a duet, Caleb or Will, sorry, not Will. Oh my gosh, Christian will read all of Caleb's dialogue in every chapter if that was a duet. So no, it's
Yeah.
just going to be dual, which is the most standard reading for romance. In general, is a dual narrative. So
And
um,
so you found the talent through Amazon?
yeah, through ACX. So Willa auditioned through ACX, and Christian auditioned outside of it. But I loved him so much, I wanted to have him do a second callback. And when he did the callback, I was like, I was crying. Like it was so good. I was in awe of the talent that I found, and sat on it. It was impossible. It was literally impossible to make a choice because I had over 100 auditions, and I had, and some of those included second callbacks. But it was in July when I started this, and so Christmas in July was a thing. And so it was the right time to do all those auditions, but there were so many people interested. And I'm so grateful that people were interested in the first place. I was thinking maybe like 10 people would look at it, but I had so much interest. It was a really hard choice because there's so many talented voice actors. And now my lens has spread, and I can appreciate the other side because I am such an avid reader.
Yeah.
Now I can look at it from the other side and go, there's so much work that goes into this, and I barely understand it. So,
So take us through that process then. So you've located that. I mean, I cannot believe how much interest that you had. That's amazing.
yeah, it was a huge shock. So, you have to
Where do you go from here?
plan it out in advance. So, like, give yourself at least 6 months, right? So I was looking at, well, I would like to do a release for about a year out, or like a year from like a year anniversary. So I was like, okay, I want to do a November release. So I was like, okay, I have to plan, I have to find people. You have to coordinate schedules to do the planning and, to do the recording. And I, as the author, have to make sure that what I give to them is correct and, going to be an easier read through, because one of the things that I learned when I was listening to all those hundreds of auditions was that there were places that I miswrote a phrase. I didn't say what I wanted to say. The verb tense was awkward. The dialogue sounded weird. And I was like, oh man, I need to like streamline this a little more. So that's part of my job. So um, once you set a date for when you're going to start recording, when the narrators will start recording, they will do that, and that'll take. This is a novella, so it's going to take both of them, no more than a week.
Oh,
And then they'll take it to their engineers. The engineers will get it fixed, and then I'll listen to them chapter by chapter at a time, and then I load it into ACX and create a document, so to speak. And then I'm going to go wide with this. So people can listen to it through libraries and Spotify and Kobo. And, the royalty choices you have to consider too. So the royalties with Amazon are not going to be as big, but I'll have royalties everywhere. So it'll balance out.
that is really fascinating. So the one thing I always think of is when you have dialogue going back and forth,
Mm-hmm.
and she records hers and he records his, I guess the sound engineer is able to bring them together so they match up.
Yeah, and that would be more important for a duet narrative. That's what the duet means. But since I'm doing a dual chapter or dual narrative, Caleb or Willow will do all of Rayanne's dialogue. So she'll
Yeah.
have to do Caleb's voice, and she'll have to do Rayanne's voice and sing for Christian. So yeah, he'll do Rayanne's, he'll act out and do Rayanne and Caleb's dialogue. So, yeah, it's a lot. I mean, it's really interesting, and it's been fun to learn about the process and just see like what people think and all that good stuff. So Yeah, and they've been really sweet. They've been so sweet and supportive. And if I have dumb questions, they'll answer all of them. And we had once we agreed to work together, we did a Zoom call where we all sort of figured out the logistics, and we figured that they'll start recording in early November, and hopefully we'll get something in time for the year anniversary. But when you load an audiobook into Amazon and they approve it, you don't necessarily know exactly when it's all going to come through. Like when Amazon is ready, Amazon's going to publish it. So you have to keep your eyes on it. So that's something that I've learned from other author friends and from the narrators as well.
It's kind of similar to paperbacks. You put in like paperback or hardback, and they're like, we'll get to it when we get to it. And then you're trying to coordinate it with your ebook, and you're just like, sometimes it comes early, sometimes it comes later. So
yeah, it's kind of wild.
I know. It is amazing that she's working out all this stuff. I am just so impressed.
Oh, thank you. I'm trying. I feel like I don't know what I'm doing half the time, but I have an amazing collection of author friends that I can always go to and say, hey, who's done this? And someone can usually answer a question. Our baby romance author group is amazing for that, and I have a couple other people that I can always go to as a resource. So just Instagram and the author community here has made everything better here. It's made my life.
There is help galore. And I always tell people, like, slide into my DMs if you need help.
Yeah.
Although I think I would want to just hand over the audio process to someone else.
Yeah.
How are you?
That costs money. So, for now, I'm gonna do it myself and use the guidance of my narrators and other authors that have done this, and make sure that it's all done right and that it's successful in its launch. So the Kickstarter is going to be a big way to help get that moving and up and going, and hopefully that will be successful. We're going to launch it in a couple weeks. So
good segue, because that was my next section of questions.
Yeah.
What is Kickstarter? How do you use it? What's all going to be on there?
The Kickstarter is primarily early access to the audiobook, so I can buy codes, and the Kickstarter will help with the purchasing of the codes. And when those codes, when I find out how many codes I need, then I can buy them and distribute them out individually to the people that have requested them. But there's also going to be lots of other fun things. So I'm in the process of getting the ebook off of Kindle Unlimited, so I can offer the ebook of the second edition. I'll have paperbacks. I'm gonna have new character art revealed, exclusive for the Kickstarter. And I'll have an NSFW, including an NSFW character art. And
we love that.
Yeah, everybody loves a good NSFW.
Yep.
So there's going to be multiple tiers. So I want to offer something for everyone. So some of the things that are going to be offered aren't going to be book related. Like I had an amazing art team last year. They really came through for me in a big way. And if they don't necessarily want the audiobook, or they don't necessarily want the physical copy of the new edition, I'm just going to create like a little swag thing for them, just so that they can have like the stickers and the bookmarks and like the character art and stuff like that. From something like that to everything, including all the new character art. I have 2 pieces that I commissioned last November. So, I have character art, and one of them might become a vellum sheet. So there'll be, I did a book box last year, with metal bookmarks, a set of 5 stickers, an ornament, and some hot chocolate. And so that's the original book box. and I'm going to offer that book box again, but then I'm going to offer more book boxes that will have more stuff with them. So it's going to be whatever. I hope it will appeal to everyone because there's going to be a lot of options for this. I'm hoping to aim something for everyone. So whether or not they want the paperback, the old paperback, the audiobook, all the swag and everything in between, that's hopefully someone will find something there. So
is your Kickstarter live? Can people go out to it now and support you?
not yet. We're still fine tuning a few things. And once we get that fine tuned, we're hoping to launch it October 22nd.
Okay.
So
not too far away.
Not too far away.
And then how long does it stay open?
We're going to do about 3 weeks. There's a sweet spot between 3 weeks and a month. You can run it longer, but you have to consider, all the updates and it's a lot of work to maintain it. I'm still learning about everything I need to prepare for, but I figured 3 weeks would be a good sweet spot. So it'll be from October 22nd to November 15th or something.
Okay.
Something similar like that.
Is this your first Kickstarter campaign?
Yep. Yeah, and I was kind of terrified to do it on Kickstarter because you either get it, if you don't get it funded 100%, you don't get it. And I was looking at some other platforms and I talked to some other people about whether or not I should pursue a Kickstarter, and a narrator who I became friends with in this process was like, you have the followers, you have it's grown authentically. You already have a niche group of readers who are interested in it. So you already have a following, so it's definitely worth it. So I was like, okay, we'll just try it and see what happens.
Okay, I admire you because not only are you teaching yourself this new audiobook process, which seems to be really detailed in a million steps, now you're also jumping off the deep end and doing a Kickstarter, which you've never done before, and in such a short amount of time.
Yeah. I'm and I have a full-time job and a kid that's 5, and so this is all part-time. So when I'm not working on this, I'm a mom. I work in lingerie as I'm retail, so I work in lingerie in the malls every day. I'm driving a lot, so it's everything's part-time because it has to be for now.
Oh my gosh, mad respect. Well, I see your little man, so I knew you're a busy mama.
Yeah.
But I didn't know you worked full-time as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, clearly you must sleep 2 hours a night.
I am actually, so I get work done either in the morning or in the evening. So sometimes the work starts, hi TJ. Sometimes it starts, if I can't sleep, I'll get some work done in the morning before everyone else is awake. And sometimes it's, after my son goes to bed, then I'll start doing it all then. So
spoken like a true mom. We fit our
I mean it's all the days in between, on the weekends. Sometimes I take some paid holiday just to focus on something that needs to get focused on.
Yeah.
I did that for the Reluctant Star when I had to finish all those editing and that last those last few moments when you're deep in revisions. I was like, okay, I gotta take a couple of days off to finish this. So yeah, my holidays are either for writing or I took a couple of days off. I'm going to Books and Bourbon in Bardstown actually in a couple of weeks. So I took a couple of days off to plan for that. So yeah, doing what I can when and where I can.
So and you also have a Kindle Vella.
Mm-hmm. Kindle Vella, yes.
Yeah, so you have that going.
Yeah. So that's been that's postponed, but I have, so that is Love in Plain Sight.
Mm-hmm.
That is the first story in the True Heart series, which The Trouble with Christmas is a part of. And that all came to me from a dream. I was reading a lot of Lauren Blakely,
Okay.
and um, she kind of snowballed me into contemporary romance. I just like read a ton. And one of her books has a lingerie retail shop owner in it. And because I have all the technical knowledge of fitting and um, lingerie styles, like she nailed how to sell lingerie, but I as someone that was like technically invested in it, I was like, okay, not everyone's a 36C, not everyone's a 32D, and that kind of percolated and all just kind of settled into my head. And I woke up and I had this idea of two people falling in love by seeing each other on a plane, and they spend a whole conversation on the plane ride talking to each other, and at the end of the day they decide that they can't not live without each other. So they have this extended weekend in Chicago, and they learn how to navigate a long distance relationship and be together. Love in Plain Sight. Plain is spelled Plane.
It's so cute.
Um,
The cover
yeah,
is great.
yeah, thank you. So it's the first 19-ish chapters are on Kindle Vella. And it's a great opportunity as an author. If you have an idea that you want to play out, you can just share up to 5,000 words in an episode, and each 1,000 words is like a token. So like if you have yeah, so if you have a 3,000 word chapter, that's 30 tokens. 30 tokens. It's been a while since I've looked at it. But you get royalties through after the first three chapters with people continuing to read it. And you can sort of take that process of writing the story as it goes, and then once it's complete, you can wait like 30 days and then republish it as a novel. So, from an author's point of view, it's just a really smart idea. If you have something you want to play with, that you're not sure you want to, write all the way, or you want to write all the way through, but you want to see if you want to publish it as a novel, it's a great way to get engagement. And it's also very interactive for the readers. So they can comment, and they can thumbs up and heart an episode and make comments on it. So it's a really fun process for writing. And I know it's currently just in the US. I know a lot of international authors want something like that, and I think there's other mediums like Radish that can do that, but I think they want like the full or most of it completed. So yeah, it's a great way to experiment. And I know authors like Rebecca F. Kenney, who does a lot of amazing retellings of fairy tales and stuff like that. She was a Kindle Vella author, and you can find, pieces of things that she's written on Kindle Vella, and so it's super cool, and I'm super excited about it. I just haven't, as you can tell, I don't have a ton of time in my day to focus. I'm not a very great multitasker, so when I get multiple ideas for writing, I have to allocate, okay, what am I focusing on today? And I just haven't had time to do that with Love in Plain Sight. But the characters have been talking to me again, and I miss them, and they're just the wonderful characters that I want to finish their story. And I have a whole series involved with their friends and their family. So Caleb is so the main characters in Love in Plain Sight are Isla Gardner and Graham Bell, and Isla's brother Caleb is the hero for The Trouble with Christmas, and her best friend Rayanne Miller is her best friend. And both Rayanne and Caleb are featured in Love in Plain Sight, so you get to meet them ahead of time, and it's fun to see them from both sides.
Okay, you said you weren't a good multitasker, but I have to call you a liar, because it seems like you have a lot of balls that you're juggling, and like everyone is doing great.
Yeah, it's so maybe it's about writing, like multitasking on writing. Like I have a couple of my friends, when I started writing Love in Plain Sight, other characters started talking to me, and I had this dilemma of how do I start feeding that monster, because I only have this much time in my day to write, and I wasn't sure because it takes away. And when I decided to evolve Rayanne and Caleb's novella into something and really flesh it out, The Trouble with Christmas got paused. Sorry, The Love in Plain Sight got paused. So it's just, I'm doing a lot, and I want to do a lot, and I want to be successful, but I have to take one step at a time. So I'm learning that, as everyone does. So,
Well, do you think, though, for those that are just starting out, new and aspiring authors, that Kindle Vella is a good idea, just because it kind of puts you in the habit of writing so much per episode? Like, I feel like it
absolutely.
builds in
Yeah.
structure. You know, as an existing author, such as yourself, you have to fit it in wherever you can. And so you already kind of have the writing discipline, because you say, hey, when I can't sleep, I go and I do that. And it's kind of your escape. But a lot of new authors struggle with having discipline or like a set structure.
Yeah, and a lot of readers like having short episodes to read, So like you can do anything from like 600 words to 5,000 words in an episode. So yeah, it's a great opportunity for new authors to really build up that skill of creating a storyline within a chapter or an episode. And if you create a long chapter, you can break it up. But honestly, sometimes it's better for like Kindle Vella just to write it as an episode.
Yeah.
And then you get that sense of that needy cliffhanger that readers either hate or love. And you have a need to finish that thought. There's high stakes to finish it. So yeah, I would totally recommend it for new authors. And it can work either way. If you are someone that loves to plan things out and you want to outline it to death, you can still outline your story and still write it in small segments, or you can just be a chaotic pantser and just see where it goes. I'm somewhere in the middle. I have to plan a little bit. But yeah, it's great either way.
Well, I like that platform. I have not used it before, but I used to be years ago on Wattpad. I like those. You get like instant feedback, because sometimes we all say the first draft is telling yourself the story, and you have to kind of work things out. And it's nice to have that feedback. If you can't afford a developmental editor, I think that is it's free. You can't get any better than that. And so you have all these like little mini developmental editors, if you can draw the readers. Because I've heard some people say, well, my stuff just sits on there and no one looks at it.
It gets pretty filtered. I mean, stories can get lost on Kindle Vella if you don't have that following, So like that's where social media comes in, or just a ton of there's a lot of Facebook groups that you can join where you can like share, read for reads and get author feedback, and that builds another community too. So if you get the comments, if you get the thumbs up and stuff like that, every Sunday you can vote for your favorite story. And if you get crowned, that's an achievement in itself. And one of my first author friends that I met that does Kindle Vella said, if you can get into the top 250 stories, then you're solid. But getting to that place is the challenge.
I know. I mean, don't we all want to be in the top 250 on Amazon in indie category?
Getting in the top 250, anything is amazing.
Especially on Amazon, because there's just so much. So you have Kickstarter, which you're going to be opening, and you are working on your audiobook, Kindle Vella. That story is on hold, which is understandable. Yes. But what's next then? Because you have, like you said, so many ideas. the Reluctant Star comes out next year, and then you have
Mm-hmm.
the story, these two stories that are interrelated that you want to turn into a series. What's
Mm-hmm.
the map? Are you writing right now?
Um, I am mostly focusing on word choice and The Trouble with Christmas. So
Oh,
there is a little bit of rewriting that's going on for that. And that's the next thing that I'll truly write as a creator in the creative process, like platform, is the short story that will go into the epilogue, into the second epilogue. But then after that, I would think I want to navigate, I want to go back to the Reluctant Star. I really love Marlon and Nora, and I love the different challenges of the way that, writing different platforms or, medias, third person versus first person, past versus present. It's a fun challenge, and um, it's a fun story to tell, and I have a lot more that I want to share in that story. I didn't really get to look into Vivian and Nora's relationship as much, and there's a whole arc that I really want to develop there.
mhm.
So that's going to be the next big thing, and then I think when and where I can, with Isla and Graham and and Love in Plain Sight, for them, I started rereading their story, and good news is I'm still in love with these characters. I still want to tell their story, because sometimes you put something aside and you're like, oh no, I'm good. I don't need, I don't want them anymore. Or they become less of a priority, and they're not less of a priority. I still really want to finish that story. So the Reluctant Star, and then back to Graham and Isla. So their story is really big too. I mean, it's a lot of the story that I've written so far is like the first third is their relationship and building it on the airplane, and then seeing where it goes in Chicago. And like I've written a third of that, and it's huge. And I don't know how I'm gonna edit it down. But then I have, and then that pace is gonna pick up after that, because that really builds and nourishes their relationship. And then, I can sort of skip through. So that the rest of the story shouldn't take as much tedious time as the first part. But yeah, that's kind of where I want to go next, I think.
Well, how many words or what page count will that end up being, do you think?
Oh, geez. So unedited and unfiltered, it is now at 100,000 words. And that's the first third. So if it keeps up with that trend, it could easily be like 190,000 words, but we'll
Would you
see.
break it into a trilogy then? Like its own?
I don't, I would like, I like big books. So, um, if it works to break it up, I would consider it, if that's the right way to tell the story.
Yeah.
Um, but if I can keep it big, and it works, and it's compelling, and it doesn't feel like it's dragging, then yeah, I'll keep it as a big book. But I have to finish it first. So let's see where it ends up, and then we'll go
I
from there.
I wrote a duet because I love these people so much, and I just felt they had so much story to tell. And
Mm-hmm.
so similar to you, like they're about 100 and I think 25,000 per
Mm-hmm.
book. By the time you write the bonus scenes and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
I know I like those thick books too,
Yeah.
but some readers they come for me because they're like, when does this end? I'm like, what? Don't you love them like I love them?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and honestly, like what I have in the first third is like every like micro step that happens. And a lot of the chapters are long. So like there's, editing it down is gonna, I'd rather edit down and make those hard choices of saying, oh God, I gotta get rid of this, than go, oh, I have to rewrite this and like build it up. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'll take a 200,000 book and like cut 100,000 out if I need to. I don't know how I'll do that, but
But you
I'd
know
rather
what
do that.
good is you can always throw those deleted scenes on your
Mm-hmm.
website, and if people want more, you're like, hey, this didn't, the cutting room floor kind of a thing, and
Yeah.
readers love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I write a lot, like if I'm struggling with a character and their voice, I'll sit in it and another, like write a piece of it that will never be seen in the story, but it might get mentioned, you know? Like for example, Graham's oldest sister is rather dramatic and theatrical. She's a musical prodigy named Rosalind, and um, he has three younger sisters, and um, um, his parents made the mistake of cutting his hair. And she gets into this big fit and makes this proclamation about how he can't get his hair cut. And so I wrote out the proclamation. I wrote out the scene where she has her fit. And then, and then when I wrote Love in Plain Sight, I had all this solid like backstory
Mm-hmm.
that was no one's gonna see, but it made me laugh because it got me into that place. And then like there's I like to write from different characters. If there's an important dialogue, I'll do that too. And even if it never shows up, at least I feel like the storytelling is solid because I'm looking at it from multiple angles. So
Dang, girl, I marvel. And again, people love that. You got to
mhm,
put it up somewhere as a reader magnet or on your website because people
mhm.
do adore extra stuff.
Yes. And I'm okay with doing the extra stuff if that means it keeps people around because I know I like the extra stuff. So provide where I can. And as long as it feels like it's worth sharing. I got this crazy idea last year. What if I write the story of the trouble with Christmas from the tree's point of view? And I started it and it was hysterical. He had a rather condescending voice and it was really funny. So I didn't finish it, but I at least started it and it was just really hilarious to look at it from that side too.
Okay, that's going to be a novella.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I shared, I think I had like 5 pages or something that I started. So, but I was thinking about making that a magnet, like
Yeah.
eventually just fleshing it out, finishing that point of view, and just like, because originally The Trouble with Christmas was a magnet. So I was planning on making it like focusing on like 10 to 15K and just making it like a little thing.
Yeah,
And then
because
I kept,
chapter on author services says I would read the hell out of that story.
yeah. I, so like I started it at like, I was like, okay, 10K. So like the first two chapters are super short because I was like 10K.
Yeah.
And then the story kept writing itself and it ended up at like 24,000 words. And then when I decided to publish it last year, I started that process in August. I fleshed it out to 38,000 something. And so it's just over, it's almost 150 words or 150 pages. So now it's coming, like now it's going to be, I'm aiming for 4K for the short story,
Yeah.
the second epilogue. So
Mhm.
it'll probably be like 160 or something, which is great. I mean, it's a great little size for the book.
Yeah. And I mean, and people just Christmas and all the holiday books,
Mm-hmm.
people devour them. Like just it's like we can't get enough of those Hallmark movies. People can't get enough of the Christmas and holiday
Yeah.
books. Mm-hmm.
There is a little lag through most of the year though. And so,
Yeah.
I wrote this and I published it just to get my name out there. I just wanted to make sure that I had something so that people could reference like, okay, Loren's written something and this is what it is. So that when I do get to my novels, like I can, have a reference point. And it's hard. There are some difficulties with releasing a holiday novella as your debut because people either read it in July or they read it in like October through like December. So, but the goal right now is just to say, okay, here, this is out. You can read it. I can't wait for you to hear what you think. But and hopefully and I with releasing an audiobook, I'm really thrilled that I am sticking with it because I know how much in my life, I read through audios. And so it's just, some people can't physically read a book. And so it's really important to me that people have that accessibility in other platforms, and audiobooks do that for so many people. Some people physically are blind, can't read. And so audiobooks, Braille, those are ways that they can access literature, and that matters a whole lot to me. So I'm really
I
excited about the
love
audiobook.
that. And let's be honest, it's an investment. Audiobooks are expensive to produce.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be about 4.5 hours. As far as audiobooks are concerned, like it's under 2,000, so it's not super expensive, but it's still a chunk of money. And but if you have a full-length novel, if it's a 9-hour audiobook, double that,
Yeah.
cost. And then if it's like a 24-hour or higher, you're gotta quintuple that, like it gets really expensive. So yeah.
And that's why I know a lot of authors, they just can't afford it, especially indie authors, because, we all have a tight budget. And so everyone would love to have audiobooks, but they're quite the investment.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But I was talking to Allie Dane, another narrator, and she was telling me that there's a really nice niche of readers that want short audiobooks, and that a lot of her latest success, this was in July when we were speaking about it, but she was saying a lot of her success was coming from her shorter audiobooks. Something that people can binge in an afternoon. So she was like, use these proceeds, whatever you get from the audiobook, save it, bulk it. And so, that when you have something bigger, you can use those proceeds to fund your next one. And, that's the plan, is to see what I can do. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a way to do it.
Yeah, no, I love that idea. What do you think is the easiest and the hardest part of being an author?
I think the easiest part of being an author is falling in love with your characters, and discovering their voices, who they are, what motivates them, what what terrifies them, digging into them, because that's, when you know your character, the writing comes easily. I think the hardest part is the due diligence and keeping up with the process. Like I've written a long time for most of my life, but the countless projects that I haven't finished is much, much larger than what I have. And so, not letting yourself get deterred by plot holes, and, finishing that first draft, and then, not giving up when you're revising, and not giving up when you're drafting, your final draft. Like, it's the heart and the longevity of the process is, I think, what weighs down on a lot of people. It weighs down on me every day, just like, oh my gosh, I have so many things I want to say, and I need to say it, and then, but it needs to be done well. So, just maintaining it, and not giving up, and not letting your demons get to you. I think that's the hardest part, especially as an indie author. You're like, who's going to read my stuff, So
No, it's so true what you said about never giving up, because I feel like there's a million opportunities for us to do it, right? Don't finish the first draft. You finish the first draft and we all say, oh my gosh, this is garbage. Or when you read through it, you're like, oh, who would read this?
Yeah.
Kind of like we always have all of our best ideas in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And then when you wake up in the morning, you're like, what was I thinking? But I feel like every author is, you really have to hang in there, even when you take some hits, or when you try something new marketing wise and it doesn't work, or what works for you, Loren, may not work for me, but it works for the next person. I mean, it's really hard, I think, to hang in there and never quit.
And that's why your narrator, that's why your author friends and like your community, like that, that like has really kept me steady and grounded. Shout out to Carolyn Corvin, because she's my work wife, when it comes to reading.
Oh,
She was the first person that read Love in Plain Sight and said, this is worth sharing. And so, like, you know, we go to each other about everything. You know, it can be like a blurb, which are awful. It can be, you know, an idea. It can be just reading like a first draft of something. Like she's read as many versions of The Trouble with Christmas as I have. And, you know, and it's still like providing insight. And so, like, you know, it's just like having those people really keep you steady. And they've certainly done that for me. So,
yeah, that's wonderful that you met your critique partner, and I know she's on here, on social
yeah.
media, because we always assume as new and aspiring authors, you're like, everybody in my family is going to be, all my friends in my family are going to be so excited about my work. And when they're not, that's another point that we could quit,
Yeah.
right? Because, but you're like, you have to understand they're not your target audience. You'll find your people on social media or online, typically.
Yeah, we found each other through a Facebook group. I did an ARC read for her, and I literally like sent her messages because at that point we weren't emailing or texting or like whatever. So I was snapshotting everything that I found on Facebook Messenger, and
Yeah.
and then I was like, and then you know we opened up and started talking about the writing process and like all the things that we found and just found that we had a lot of things in common and we wanted to share so many like share our ideas and when I shared the Love in Plain Sight with her, it was really it was exciting to have someone say this is worth reading. This is something that I think people would love to see. And so that was, you know, that really kickstarted my whole process and this journey of becoming an independent author because I didn't know that that was something that I really wanted to pursue until I had someone say, yes, do it, do the thing.
Oh,
So,
that's beautiful, though.
yeah, yeah,
Well, we are almost at our hour. Do you have time for some rapid fire questions?
yeah, absolutely.
All righty. Do you prefer paperback or e-reader?
Paperback.
I love those, but
But
e-reader.
audiobook is really the answer.
Oh, I should add that.
Yeah,
Are you a plotter or a pantser?
planster, the one in the middle.
Pantser. Okay, so
Yeah.
for those listening, what does that mean? How much will you plot and versus how much you would pants percentage?
I plot the general story. I get the major arc points of what's important and what moves the story forward, and
Uh-huh.
then I let the chapters go. And I'll outline a general idea for the chapters, but most of the time it gets tossed out the window when the characters start talking. So
And
yeah, so yeah,
you write in first person or third?
both. But I do right now. I'm doing first person. But I
Okay,
started historically, I wrote third person most of the time.
I am so impressed that authors can do that because I have tried and my brain only thinks like one way. But there's
Mm-hmm.
several authors that can write in both, and it's just fascinating to me.
I think so like with The Reluctant Star, for example, I chose to do that in third person past because it was a myth being retold. But with contemporary romance, with The Trouble with Christmas, it felt more natural to speak in the voice of Caleb and Rayanne.
Yeah.
And that is first person present, which is weird. It's a really weird tense to write in because I was so used to writing third past. So that was a big jump to take that risk and do it. But I, funnily enough, when I was applying for colleges, my college essay was in first person present. And it really pushes you into being in the present moment. And so that's what I like about first person present. But it's a weird process to start.
Well, and I think that readers really want to be that person. They want to identify. And so when it's kind of the I statements or me, or when it's all first
Mm-hmm.
person, deep POV, I feel like readers really resonate with it.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's more,
Definitely, especially with contemporary.
yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I do see a lot of third person in fantasy. And I think that's
Agreed.
easier. But when you get into some of the subgenres of romance, I really think like first person's where it's at.
I think it depends on how much of the story is, how much world building you need to create. Because if you need to create a whole world where you would, like in fantasy or science fiction, there's so much to say about the world, and it needs to be controlled in some way. And so expanding it out into third person really allows you to create a better world. Where in contemporary, it's really about the relationships between the people. And so I feel like that's why first person really resonates with contemporary more, because you want that relationship established, and you want to go through the whole journey. And so, like what you said about, readers wanting to be in the characters' heads, like that really, like that makes sense in my head for why it would be first person.
I love your explanation of both.
Thanks. Yeah.
It's so good. Are you plot driven or character driven?
Character.
All the way.
All the way.
Do you like to write alone, write with a partner, or writing sprints?
Write alone mostly, though I'm learning how to do sprints and write with other people.
Which do you prefer?
Alone. With music.
I was going to say that was my next one. With in silence or write with music?
Music. Like I'm a big mood writer, so like music is super influential. And sometimes, like even if the song isn't exactly what I'm like vibing off of, like if the lyrics aren't 100%, but the song is, or the emotional like feeling of the music helps build the story, I'm seriously into that. But sometimes I have to like pause the music to get the precise word, but mostly music. Yeah,
I understand that. I should be singing along to the lyrics.
Yeah.
Okay, do you write with a deadline or at your own pace?
I'm so bad at deadlines, so it's at my pace. I'm the worst with deadlines. Like I hear a deadline, I don't know how I'm gonna do this as a writer, because I hear a deadline, I'm go, deadline, like I panic. So and then my inner like rebel goes, but do you really have to do it by that time? So yeah, I try to do it by my own pace.
And Loren, you have some big deadlines coming up too with your
Yeah.
Kickstarter and your audiobook.
No, I know. But I mean, that's different. Like with writing, Kickstarter deadlines, I understand, but like with writing deadlines, or like or just like organizing my own life in general, like I like having a general expectation of this needs to get done then.
Yeah.
But if it's written by the hour or even by the day, I kind of panic. So, but I do like, in all honesty, like if I invite myself and I say in a welcoming like idea of like, hey, let's try to get 1,000 words in today, not by a time or anything or a specific place, but let's just try to get 1,000 words in. That's helpful. That's helpful. But like I'm dreading, like I would ideally, if I make this work, I would like to get the Reluctant Star out by April next year. But
Okay.
that, I
6 months.
mean, it's a chunk of time, but that means I have to really buckle down and write after that. After this whole Kickstarter and everything is sorted through, then hopefully, the writing will come
Well,
and I
and
can meet it.
there's in Little Man.
Yeah. Little in, yeah,
Yep,
work life, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, will you write series or standalones?
Generally, I would like to do series.
Yeah.
I like seeing how characters connect and how different relationships evolve, even if it's a standalone series.
I was gonna say, because sometimes it's hard to leave those worlds that you create.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to say goodbye to your characters.
It is, yeah, but I don't want to confine myself to one world. I
Yeah.
don't want to confine myself to one story. And I know, I mean, like Diana Gabaldon is, committed her whole writing career to Outlander and the Lord John series, and that's all interconnected. And that's like 20 something books over like 30 years of writing. And like, you know, that's amazing. And I love her. I love her writing. But that's a lot of books and that's one world. So I'll create smaller series and expand. And I just like, I'm a reader first. So like, I have so much inspiration from everything that I read. So, you know, mythology, folklore, retellings of fairy tales, like all of those things interest me. I'm a huge fantasy reader. I don't, and that takes a lot of discipline. If I ever get an idea for a fantasy, I want to write it. But that takes a lot of foresight and planning, and like you have to. And fantasy is there's so many stories that are in the fantasy world that have already been told. So creating something that would be genius and interesting and engaging enough to fantasy readers, like it's hard to do that, because it's already so well established. Same for contemporary. Contemporary is already so well established. So,
And I feel like fantasy has so many elements.
mm.
It's like magic systems and different characters. And are they human? Are they fae? Are they shapeshifters? Are they, you know what I mean?
Is there paranormal experiences that are, characters that are going on? Like, yeah, yeah. And my interest in fantasy started with Harry Potter. And that's a soft, magical world. But I've really been getting into a lot of dark fantasy lately. So it's been really fun to sort of delve into deeper, more like nitty gritty, like emotional stories too.
Well, because there's always that one that opens the door, and then you're like peek inside, and you're like, "What is this world?"
Exactly.
And your
And then
taste
you're,
sense and change.
yep. I have yet to really peek into dark romance, but I know, like, I know I'll get into it at some point, but I'm forever in my romantasy era right now. So I'll get there eventually. Because I know I'm gonna read everything at some point. Because I have a TBR list, like, that goes across the world 8 times, and there's a lot of dark romance on there, and
Same.
yeah. So eventually I'll get there.
Last question. Do you write historical setting, present day, or future?
Present day. But I have a few stories that are past, that are told in the past that I like to do. Historical fiction was a great influence in my reading. Before Harry Potter, it was historical fiction and classic literature that got my interest. So I have some stories that are set in the past that I'd like to do, or set in a historical setting, but mostly currently contemporary, present day.
Well, that is all the questions I have. So tell everyone where they can find you online and buy your books.
I am currently on Amazon. The Trouble with Christmas is on website platforms that go through Ingram Spark as well. But you can find me on Loren Sorenson Writes on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. My new website got recently launched at LorenSorensonWrites.com. And there's a little bit more about me and the series, and ways to join my newsletter. And I have a link tree on my Instagram that you can connect with, and find me there.
Great. Well, this has been so much fun. I knew it'd be great to catch up with you. And so thank you so much. It's been a really fast hour.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you for having me, and I'd love to continue talking another time someday.
Oh yeah, we're gonna next year when you have all this launch, I'll be like, what is Loren doing in 2025?
Let's do it.
Because
sounds good to
you
me.
have like a very quick, less than 90 days, and you got some big goals. So I wish you all the best. I know they will come off beautiful because you are very attention to detail. You're very caring. That's what I love.
Thank you. It was really fun being here, and I'm so glad you had me.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.